Welcome to Shiz Who, your top spot for politics. My role in bringing great content on current events requires your role as a great viewer. So like this video, subscribe to this channel, the Shiz Who channel, and comment on this video. Now let's shout out that which gets this show going. Let's see what maintains us from day to day, starting with Mr. Farley Perkins at the Farley Perkins Agency. Hit up 757-271-6655. He'll help you with your insurance needs. Let's say you're in the mood for a shake or some ice cream here in Portsmouth. Head on down to LG Sweet Boutique on 340 High Street in order to make sure that you get yourself a fix for that sweet tooth. Also, some Southern-based food. My good friend, Miss Ellen, has her Homestyle and Barbecue Express restaurant business with a location across from Regent University in Virginia Beach and here in Portsmouth Boulevard across from Victory Crossing. My good friend, Mr. Seiko Varner, runs Positive Vibes Incorporated. He does credit fixes and tax resolutions and financial help. He's also great in entertainment. He's a great DJ, and he created the Hampton Roads Green Book, which is a great application to find Black-owned businesses in Hampton Roads. And lastly, Black Swan Mindset, part of the Chronicles, a show run here on Shiz Who by my awesome wife, Andrea Dixon Chesvenner. So stay tuned for those shows as they happen. So today, I want to shift to the Norfolk Commonwealth's attorney race. Now, I reached out to the current CA, Ramin Fatehi, and his opponent, Mr. John Butler, to have a debate right here on Shiz Who. I received word from just one, so we'll see what we can do in terms of having a debate with the participant who showed, and that's Mr. Ramin Fatehi. So I will bring him on right now. Good sir, welcome to Shiz Who. You're in the middle of the run to keep your Commonwealth attorney seat, so I hope that we have a great show today. You're up for some good questions.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks, Conrad.
Thank you so much for joining today. Let us begin. What is your Norfolk history and the best stuff about Norfolk, the community and such, to yourself?
My Norfolk history goes back to when my mom and dad moved to Hampton Roads in 1985. So I had spent the first 7 years of my life in Iran, and mom and dad decided that it was time to come back, and they settled here. So I grew up actually in Virginia Beach, which is usually a point against us down here in Norfolk. But I went to Norfolk Academy, and so I spent 10 years of my schooling in Norfolk. And once I had a driver's license, I was going to the Narrows Cinema and having coffee here. And when I wrapped up school and really started my professional career I moved to Norfolk, and I've lived in Norfolk since 2006 with an 18-month interlude when I went to Charlottesville. So I'm a Norfolk guy. I'm a Colonial Place guy for your Norfolk viewers. I live in Colonial Place, and I just love the city. Greatest thing about Norfolk is its history, its diversity, its rich textures. You have the downtown, you have the beach, you have suburbs, if that's your thing. You've got 19th century and 18th century buildings, if that's your thing. It's the capital city of Hampton Roads, in the heart of the place. And working here, living here, having my children grow up here, having my wife work here, all of that is deeply meaningful to me.
And as someone who lives in Hampton Roads all his life and went to study at college, I chose Old Dominion, so Norfolk. My wife chose Norfolk State, Norfolk. So behold the green and gold, and go Monarchs. We like all that here. So I would like to take this opportunity to throw it over to the Butler camp here. I don't have them present at the moment, so I don't have the ability to understand how they like Norfolk and their favorite things about Norfolk. So, okay, let's move on to our next question. What is your political and legal history, and what makes it right for you to have a job like this?
Oh, I'm a yellow dog union Democrat. I am a big believer in the power of government to do good when the government does things correctly. I am I have believed in these things throughout my whole professional career, and the attack on government, the attack on working people and working class people is part of why we do not have a healthy society right now. And the justice system is one of the places where the disparities in the way that people are treated, rich people and poor people, black people and white people, is the most acute, and where a lot of our distrust of the government comes from. So in Virginia, the only part of the justice system we get to vote for is our prosecutor. We don't vote for our judges, thankfully. We don't vote for our laws directly. And as somebody who believes that both, we really should have liberty and justice for all, that we really should have equal treatment under the law, and as someone who understands that government, when it runs right, does things right, I wanted to be part of that solution. So that's where my political pieces of it come in. My moral pieces are very much that a lot of people just don't acknowledge the fact that the justice system has delivered a lot more injustice than justice over the last 250 years, and that is a big reason for why people don't trust the justice system, why people don't cooperate with the justice system, and why people don't trust their government. And that distrust, that two-tiered system of justice, has a direct impact on public safety. And if we want to be safer, we need to be fairer. And we also need to call out the failings of the justice system as a first step towards rebuilding trust.
All right. Now let's go over to the Butler camp there. And we don't have the ability to have that same question answered by Mr. Butler. All right. Now on to my next question here. In your opinion, is there a significant role to geography and crime, and what should a CA do about that?
Yes, there is. The built environment and the physical geography of a place has a lot to do with a place's crime rate. One of the things that indexes very closely onto elevated levels of crime, and especially violent crime, is concentrated poverty. Not just having poor people, period, but having poor people packed into neighborhoods. It's not just my personal opinion. I'm sort of a wonk when it comes to this information. The Brookings Institution has done a big study of why violence spiked during COVID. And the short answer was young men being out of work or out of school in census tracts with poverty at 30% or more. We, as a Commonwealth's attorney, my job is to recognize the role of geography in the cases that eventually the police bring to me, and to acknowledge that we need to look and see how we can address crime as it happens in an individual place. But it's also something that's a lot more controversial and that makes a lot of other politicians uncomfortable, which is those of us who keep up with the science. We call ourselves progressive prosecutors. We recognize that the crimes which we prosecute are symptoms of other underlying social causes, whether it's the disappearance of good blue-collar jobs, the continued segregation by race and class of our public schools, the disparate health outcomes for rich and poor people, and inadequate access to health and mental health care, and environmental justice. So the other role that we have as prosecutors, if we're really doing our jobs right, is to point out that if you want less crime, you need to be fairer with the way geography is set up. You need mixed income, mixed use neighborhoods. You need walkable neighborhoods. You need schools that are just as good for a child in our richest zip code as a child in our poorest zip code. And that this isn't just a moral good, but that it's a public safety good. So, and that tends to make other people kind of uncomfortable because it shifts public safety and the responsibility for public safety where it belongs, which is upstream.
Let's throw it over to Mr. Butler.
Oh man, maybe he needs to adjust his vertical.
Perhaps. Let's see here. Let's go on to question number 4. DEI has a loaded representation. It has a bit of a bad rap, but should a CA have a DEI mindset for their staff and for law enforcement, as well as how they view the role as a prosecutor?
Yes. Bearing in mind that the cops don't work for me and I don't work for them. So I really should, though, in a police force that reflects the demographics and life experiences of its community will be both more trusted and therefore more effective. But when it comes to both my office and the folks whose cases we handle, absolutely, diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. First of all, with our staff, if everybody in the office looks like each other and thinks like each other, then we are going to have blind spots, we're going to have implicit biases, and we are going to have a hard time understanding the situations in which our victims and our defendants find themselves. And we're also going to have a hard time convincing juries that we know what we're talking about. It is essential, again, to have rich people, poor people, Black people, white people, immigrants, people from the LGBTQ plus community. Everybody there. All of the studies show that if you have a diverse workplace, you have a more effective workplace. Then when it comes to our victims and the accused, it's the same thing. That the problem with a two-tiered system of justice, one of the reasons that we have it is that people are generally more sympathetic to, even if it's only subconsciously so, towards people who are from their circle. And that's why our circle needs to encompass everyone. And we have to make sure that simply because a victim or the accused did not grow up the way we did, or is not of our race, or is not of our branch of the LGBTQ plus community, that we don't judge them, prejudge them, discriminate against them. Because then we have two-tiered justice, then we have juries who won't convict. We absolutely need to be mindful of everything. And the very fact that we have to have an argument about this tells you how sick our body politic is right now. Because who is for supremacy? Who is for privilege? Who's for exclusion? Like, why is this controversial? It shouldn't be.
Understandable. Let's throw it over to Mr. John Butler. Remember, also an opponent in this CA race in Norfolk. And not here. All right. Let's throw it over to number 5. What is the role on the CA on focusing on violent crime, firearms crime, and should it be prioritized compared to lesser crimes?
Yes and yes. Even though we deal primarily in symptoms, we obviously still deal with very serious crimes, people hurting and killing our friends and neighbors. And while we as prosecutors in Virginia, we don't investigate cases, we actually don't even charge cases. The police, along with a group of state government employees called magistrates, do that. We still have a real responsibility to make sure that if we have the evidence and we have the witnesses, that we prosecute, convict, and confine people who are dangerous. That's a core function of the job. But at the same time, as we are doing that, we have to be mindful that we don't use and overuse the tools of the state and wind up causing more harm than good in low-level offenses. First of all, we don't have the resources because the state and our city governments don't give us the resources to prosecute every single offense. I mean, the police, my office handles 4,000 cases a year, and they're essentially all cases the police bring to us after charging. If the police charged everybody in Norfolk with everything they possibly did wrong, we'd probably have 400,000 cases. There would be no way. And if we treat all 4,000 of those cases like a murder, then the actual murders don't wind up getting prosecuted right. So, yeah, we have to prioritize, and we have to focus on the part of the system, or of what the purpose of the system is, which is to address dangerous conduct and address dangerous individuals.
Mr. John Butler, opponent in the CA race, your thoughts? All right, how about on to question number 6? Is there a need for Norfolk CA to be singularly authoritative on matters that become national, like a federal intrusion into a locality to seize and deport people?
Yes. Now, there are obvious federalism problems here, and the Constitution says that the federal government is supreme in its particular areas. But when the federal government begins to meddle in people's state rights, that is something that we have to address. And we are seeing it in Los Angeles right now, where the federal government is completely violating the Constitution and jackbooting civil rights protesters in Los Angeles. And it's very important that we have prosecutors who do not go along with that kind of thing. We have sheriffs who don't go along with that thing, and cops who don't go along with that kind of thing. And that's why I've always said, for example, when the United States Supreme Court stripped our sisters and daughters and mothers of their reproductive rights, I said I was not going to prosecute a woman or her doctor for an abortion that would have been legal under Roe. Well, I've said that I'm not going to sit here and quiz my domestic violence and robbery victims on their immigration status, because that'll drive them into the shadows and make them sitting ducks for being victimized. There are areas where we can stand up for ourselves and stand up for our civil rights. And one of the real questions in this race is whether my opponent is going to have the same sort of backbone that I've had over the last 4 years in standing up for civil rights. Given the fact that my opponent took a job in the Trump administration in 2018, and that he's been endorsed by the Norfolk Republican Party, tells me that, if you want to take a bet on who's going to fold second or not fold at all, I think your better bet is me.
Let's throw it over to Mr. Butler for a rebuttal. Alrighty. How about question number 7? Should Commonwealth's attorneys take the lead on the well-being of their subordinate staff?
Yes, absolutely. We understand a lot better now than 20 years ago when I started doing this work, the role of vicarious trauma, the way we internalize the horrible things that we see people do to each other in this work. There's emotional burnout, there is just workload burnout. I have 40 prosecutors for those 4,000 cases, and that's a heavy load. And I have an obligation to make sure that we have mental health care available, that we encourage our subordinates to take time for themselves. I also have an obligation to fight for resources and trying to make sure that we have adequate staffing effectively from the city, because the mayor and the city council through the city manager are the ones who control how many people are in my office and what they get paid. But I have an absolute obligation to do my best to make sure that my employees can bear the heavy burden that they have agreed to take on to make Norfolk, or to make the Norfolk legal system more just and more fair. But I tell you, man, it's hard.
Understandable. Let's throw it over to Mr. Butler for his thoughts on that matter. Alrighty. Number 8. Should there be profit on the top of court debt paid by the public?
No. In fact, there shouldn't be court debt. Court debt is the stick we use to beat people. For your viewers who aren't familiar with the idea of court debt, when you're convicted of any kind of crime in Virginia, you are charged fees. And these fees are non-waivable, and they're not means tested. And for example, if you're convicted of a felony, you're probably going to walk out with over $1,000 worth of fees you have to pay to the court, whether you're rich or poor, and whether you got a probation sentence or you got 20 years to serve. And if you don't pay that debt, then you wind up, that gets sent to collections, and then you get interest tacked onto it, and you get collections fees tacked onto it. This is the epitome of the criminalization of poverty. And I've fought in the General Assembly repeatedly, especially alongside Delegate Phil Hernandez, to try and reduce the burden of court debt, because this isn't the downtown tunnel. Like, we're not voluntarily using it. Like, you shouldn't be taxed for your punishment. And if we really want people to stop committing crimes, we have to make them. If we impoverish them, we are just creating an incentive structure. Here in Norfolk, we had the added insult when I took office, which was that we used a private collections firm to collect court debt, which is it's just wrong. It's completely morally wrong. And one of the things that I'm proudest of doing was canceling the contract of that private collections firm and shifting collections to the state. Because if the state is going to impose these unjust fees, then the state should have an obligation through the Department of Taxation to collect them. And a group of private individuals shouldn't be profiting off of other people's misery.
Mr. Butler, your thoughts on public debt being charged by the city? All right. Now, on to my last prepared question of the day. Does the Norfolk CA have a role in being a lobbyist for interest in Norfolk to specifically Richmond's General Assembly? And if so, what sort of things should the CA be pushing for?
Things big and small. And this is something I'm really proud of, because I'm part of a progressive prosecutors group called Virginia Progressive Prosecutors for Justice. And it includes the half a dozen of us who are true progressives. And I, year after year, have been the lead lobbyist in Richmond for fair changes to the law. That's included everything from helping the accused have their right to a jury trial protected, to criminalizing the possession and sale of guns with obliterated serial numbers. But in terms of Norfolk specifically, I know everybody's mad about the dirt bike situation, and I'm mad about it too. I have a lot of gratitude for Delegate Juwan Ward from Hampton and our Senator, Angela Williams-Graves, because I worked for 2 years and as Senator Graves successfully passed and had the governor sign a bill to allow cities to seize dirt bikes that are operated illegally on our streets. So that's little stuff. Obliterated firearms with obliterated serial numbers, that's serious stuff. And then I've also lobbied for more funding to allow us to staff, and not just us, but prosecutors all over Virginia, to staff cases of all varieties instead of just felonies. But yeah, big things, small things, public safety things, public good things. Well, what I told, for example, the people who run Head Start is, if you convert a giving money to those undeserving people issue into a public safety issue, all of a sudden you start to get allies. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done in the Assembly to that effect.
All right, let's throw it over to Mr. Butler for his thoughts on the role a CA may have in addressing Richmond and possibly pushing for policy. All right. Now, that was the last of the questions that I had prepared, though I did get a text from a friend of mine who is curious about the following, if you have a little bit of time, the both of you, on your schedule. The concept of gun buybacks. I've seen that around Hampton Roads quite a bit. Organizations like the Hampton Roads Black Caucus do like to do those as well. It's been brought up in Portsmouth here. And you're in Norfolk. What are your thoughts on programs? Should they be organization-based? Are they a good thing? Gun buybacks.
Anything that takes a gun off the street is a good thing. The research is sort of mixed on whether gun buybacks reduce gun violence, but the worst that they are doing is nothing. And the best that they are doing is taking guns out of people's hands. So I am in support. Anybody who wants to run a gun buyback program, you get 2 thumbs up from me. I am an absolute supporter.
All righty. And for the opinion of Mr. John Butler. All right, all right. Now, the question part of the program is done. So what I would like to do for you both now is to give you the opportunity to close out with a good, strong pitch as to why you should be voted for not only on this Tuesday for the primary. Remember that, JSU viewers, June 17th is the primary day in the state of Virginia. But also come November time, why should they vote for you? We'll start with you, Mr. Fatehi.
I would say please vote for me in June because November will be a formality. The Republicans are not putting up a candidate. There's no independent candidate. So whoever wins the Democratic primary on Tuesday will serve 4 years as Commonwealth's attorney. I would ask your viewers and listeners in Norfolk to support me because we are entering a dangerous era in American government, one where we are seeing an assault on the rule of law, an effort to roll back the civil rights gains of women and marginalized groups, and where every system is being stress tested. And we always talk about elections being important, but it is an open question what American democracy is going to look like by the time the next presidential comes around. I am here to protect our rights and to protect our way of life at the local level. And I have shown over the last 4 years that I have the fortitude to stand up to wealthy, moneyed, and powerful interests who want to hurt our citizens. If you want to know why, you can look at my record. I came into office with the opposition of a number of city leaders, including the sheriff, the treasurer, a majority of the city council, and behind the scenes, the mayor. They spent 4 years not helping me. And during that time, I have fully staffed my office. We have handled 4,000 cases a year, and we have seen a huge drop in violence and in crime in Norfolk. Over the last 4 years, homicides have dropped 42%, violent crime has dropped 40%, property crime has dropped 27%. Even shoplifting, which is the panic of the year, is down 20%. And we have seen the population of the Norfolk City Jail fall to half of what it was 10 years ago. And in addition, we have seen, with one exception, no child go to adult prison in Norfolk. I can't claim any credit for the crime numbers coming down because prosecutors don't control the crime rate. The prosecutors will try to take credit when the numbers come down, and then they take the blame when they go up, and neither is fair. But what I will take credit for is saying and carrying through that I wasn't going to criminalize childhood. I wasn't going to criminalize poverty, that I was going to reduce the footprint of probation. I was going to right-size our sentences for nonviolent criminals. I was going to avoid felony convictions where they were unnecessary. I kept all of my criminal justice reform promises, and crime fell, which meant that I've shown, first of all, that I can stand up to people who want the old ways and want mass incarceration, and two, that I've offered living proof to people that they don't have to choose between their public safety and their civil rights. So you have a stark choice between footage not found and always happy to talk to you, where you've got a federal prosecutor who dog whistles about enforcing the law, and he has a 100% conviction rate, and who took a job in Trump's Justice Department and now has hundreds of thousands of dollars from people who've donated to Republicans, and who has the endorsement of the Norfolk Republican Committee in the Democratic primary. So this is not, first of all, this office is not dog catcher. Like, it's people's lives at stake. But second, this is a Democratic primary, and we live in a world where we as Democrats really, really need to defend our values because we may not get another chance. And that's why I'm running. That's why I'm running as hard as I am. And I should say that I'm not running alone. This is very much a battle between the old guard, the bipartisan group of rich old dudes who makes and breaks politicians in Norfolk, and the new guard and the people who understand criminal justice. So with me are Congressman Bobby Scott, Don Scott, the Speaker of the House, Mark Herring, who was my opponent's boss and endorses me, and Norfolk OGs like Paul Riddick, Algie Howell, Yvonne Wagner, Rodney Jordan, the old guard of civil rights advocates. So it's a choice. It's a choice between what you've seen me do and a return to what one of my supporters, one of my opponent's supporters, called the golden age of Norfolk, whatever that means.
And for the final thoughts of Mr. John Butler. All right. Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Ramin Fatehi, for coming on today, or should I refer to you as Mr. Commonwealth's Attorney to be fully proper there. And thank you for coming on, discussing your thoughts on these important matters. We do wish you good luck going into this Tuesday. And if you want to have any final shout out to ways people can follow you and like and subscribe to things of yours, let us know.
Absolutely. You can always call me Ramin Conrad. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. You can follow me at Fatehi Norfolk on various social media platforms. I would also encourage you to go to my office website, the Norfolk Commonwealth Attorney's Office. We put out 220 press releases last year. So if you want to know the kind of justice that I'm doing in your name in Norfolk, all you have to do is sign up, and I'll push the news to you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and have this wonderful conversation with you and my opponent. It was great.
And now the thoughts of Mr. Butler and how to follow him. All right. Well, again, thank you, sir. I hope you have a great afternoon on this Friday.
Happy Friday to you too, and take care, man. Hopefully we'll be able to have another conversation soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. All right. Shazoo viewers, again, you're here for the top spot for politics here. And we just heard from opponents, if you will, in Norfolk Commonwealth's attorney's race, including the incumbent attorney, Ramin Fatehi, having defeated no-show John Butler in this debate. So we thank him for coming on this show. Don't forget to like our content, subscribe to the Shazoo channel, and keep your political interests high, and make sure you have a great June.